spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the PSN Sports Network. Alongside Nikita Magnum and Artie Decker, I'm your host, Brock Bennett. And this week, it's the last week of the regular season. The playoffs are just right around the corner, guys, and some teams are already in, some teams are not. And Nikita, since the playoffs are next week, what are some of your thoughts about the last games for this week and going into next week?
Well, we're going into what we like to call the rivalry week. This is where you line up all the teams that just live down the road and you try to beat them and try to get those bragging rights for another year, Artie.
Well, the thing that sticks out to me this week, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a year where we're in a week 10 and it means something. I mean, you look back in the past, most time the playoffs are already set. This is just kind of a week just to not get hurt and, as you say, play your rival and hopefully get the win.
Yeah, and like you say, this we can get into where all these tiebreakers play out with all these games win or lose this week.
Well, some of the tiebreaker games may come into effect this week depending on who wins and who gets beat. So with that being said, let's go ahead and make some of our picks for the last week of the regular season. And first up on our list is rivalry week this week. Collinsville at Valley Head. That's a rival game. Collinsville having to travel to Valley Head. Valley Head, possibly already in the playoffs. Collinsville, they're not going to make it this year. And Artie will go with you on this one. Valley Head having momentum, possibly going into the playoffs. If Collinsville beats them, did that sort of drown them out from their momentum for next week?
Well, I mean, Valley Head's playing for a whole lot because they're in a situation where if they win, they keep their hopes alive for winning the region. As to where Collinsville, on the other hand, has lost, I believe, 6 in a row. They're struggling. This would be a huge, huge win for them to end on a good note and probably make their season.
But it's like I said earlier in the year, I predicted that Collinsville would go on this slide and end up 3-7, and I got to go Tigers all the way.
As far as this matchup, I've kind of struggled with it, but I'm kind of like you. Just the momentum factor, Valley Head's coming off 2 wins, as to where Collinsville's lost 6 in a row. I think it's going to be tough for Collinsville. It's not going to be impossible, but I would have to lean towards Higdon and company on this one.
Well, another playoff team. You got Geraldine going to Crossville. They're right down the road from each other. And Nikita, Geraldine, got beat by Plainview last week. Didn't clinch the region, but they're still in the playoffs. What do you like about them going to Crossville?
Yeah, anybody that's out from Sand Mountain, they know this as the Battle of Skirham Creek. So this has been a long-time rivalry. Like you said, Geraldine, they just come up short, and they locked in that solid 2 spot for Class 3A Region 7. But Crossville is winless on the year. Geraldine is just going to have their way with them.
Geraldine just looks to, continue, or, I should say regain some momentum after taking the beating from Plainview last week. As to where Crossville, once again, they're kind of in the same boat as Collinsville. They're just looking to get a win and maybe, take away some of the pain of this disappointing season.
Yeah, but, Cloudus and company and Crossville, like I said, they're trying to piece together something, but this ain't the week to be doing it, and after this, they can just focus on next year.
Well, if there was a week that they could pull the upset on Geraldine, I believe this would be it. You got a dinged-up Geraldine team, maybe a little bit of a hangover from last week, who knows, but probably Geraldine wins this game.
Well, guys, the last game here is number 1 5 traveling to Plainview this week. It's a Thursday night game. Everybody in the county will probably be there. Plainview having a good year, 5, once again, a stellar year. Both teams are their respected number 1 out of their region going into the playoffs. Nikita, can Plainview finally beat Fife?
Well, this year it seems to be a better matchup. Plainview's a little more balanced. They're playing at home. Fife's got to come in and take it away from them. And Artie, I just don't know if Fife's going to have such an easy time as what everybody thinks.
It won't be an easy game. Looking at it, as you say, on paper, I mean, just breaking it down, not knowing the rivalry and everything, you would have to go with Plainview. But, I mean, you can't argue with 5 in a row. You can't argue with 8 of the last 10. It's going to be a tough task for Pruitt and Company to get the W.
I mean, it's been since 2008 since Plainview has beat Fife, and they done it at Fife, so don't think Fife hadn't forgot that. I mean, they know they got beat at home, and they probably would like to avenge that. But even though Fife is dominating the way they are, I like Plainview on an outside chance to actually pull this little bit of an upset.
Well, I mean, as I say, I really, really want to pick them, but I'm going to have to just keep going with the karma of it, and I'm going to say the Red Devils pull it out. But I want to throw a stat at you. They, Plainview's averaging about 38 points a game. You got Fife averaging about 53, and both teams are only giving up 9 a game. So, I mean, that's some pretty good dominance.
But you got to look at it this way. Plainview likes to throw the ball, and Fife has not really been that prolific in stopping the pass when it comes to throwing downfield. So you got to look at Jace being able to spread the field and throwing it to Will Kirk or throwing it to the Willingham kid or to the other Willingham kids. So, I mean, you got to look at it that way. And Plainview's defense has been kind of stingy the past few games. So,
well, everyone, we've broke down, the last week of our regular season games. And we're going to do our best to try and break down some of these tiebreaker scenarios and who might get in for the playoffs next week. And I'm going to turn it over to Nikita and let him explain everything alongside Artie. So, Nikita, if you want to, you can go ahead and try to break down all this mess that's sort of going on right now.
Okay, we've been working feverishly on this, Artie mostly, but I've tried to help as best I can. And we've tried to wrap our minds around the AHSAA's tiebreaker shenanigans that they have here. So we're going to start with Class 1A Region 7. You have a 3-way tie right now with Valley Head, Cedar Bluff, and Spring Garden. So each team beating the other team, it goes all the way down to M tiebreaker, which clearly states the team whose defeated opponents have the most victories if all teams involved in the tie play an equal number of games. So pretty much what that means is every team that these 3 teams has beat, you add up their wins, in which that gives Valley Head 16, Cedar Bluff 15, and Spring Garden 17 going into this last week. So, scenario number 1. If Cedar Bluff wins, they automatically lock in number 1, no matter what. Valley Head would need to win also, and they would lock in the number 2, forcing Spring Garden to be the 3. And we do know, without a shadow of a doubt, Artie, that Jacksonville Christian will be in that 4 spot no matter what. But the other scenarios, if Cedar Bluff and Valley Head both lose, Spring Garden takes the 1 spot. Valley Head still sits at that 2 spot for now, and then Cedar Bluff goes to number 3. But here's where it gets interesting. If Valley Head wins and Cedar Bluff loses, they get the 1 spot, Spring Garden gets the 2 spot, and Cedar Bluff falls down to the 3. And in the last case scenario, if they all lose, it goes back to like I just said. Valley Head would be the 1, Spring Garden would be the 2, Cedar Bluff would be the 3, and your 4 seed would be Jacksonville Christian. So our predictions for this week for 1A Region 7 is that Valley Head will beat Collinsville. So that will put them in the 1 spot, and we predict that Spring Garden will beat Shades Mountain Christian. So that would put them in the 2 spot. We collectively said that Cedar Bluff would lose to Sandrock, so that slides them down to the 3. And then, Artie, you have Jacksonville Christian locked in at number 4 to travel in that first round of the playoffs.
Once again, I mean, that's tentative, but that is our, that's what we come up with. Looking at 2A Region 6, it's supposedly tied up, but as we've done the math, and evidently we're the only ones who did the math, Addison come out with 22 wins. You got Cold Springs with 20 wins, and you got Tarrant with 15 wins. So you might say, well, how does that all affect coming into this week? Well, you got Cold Springs who needs to get 2 to be able to tie Addison, and they can't do it because they're playing a winless Holly Pond team, so they cannot move. Okay, you look at Tarrant, they're playing a 2-win Shelby County team, so therefore they can't move. And then you have Addison playing a Winston County team with 5 wins, and Addison doesn't have to win a game. So therefore, at the end of the day, you will have Tanner, of course, locked in at number 1, and you'll have Addison slipping in at number 2, and Cold Springs 3, and Tarrant 4. I mean, is that simple enough?
Yeah, that pretty much how it just rolled right down. Addy, win or lose, they lock in the number 2 right now because they're 2 wins ahead of Cold Springs, and there's nothing, like I said, there's nothing Cold Springs can do about it because Holly Pond is winless so far. And that's using that letter M scenario once again, which we figured out you had to go through about 10 or 12 different tiebreakers to get to, and then work your way back around.
Yep.
So we'll roll on down to 3A Region 6, and this is the battle for the 4 spot. Who gets to travel to Plainview and take on Dale and the Bears? So you got Westbrook Christian, Weaver, Pleasant Valley all knotted up for that 4 spot. And right now, if you added up all their all the teams they've beat, they all have 6 wins. So here's the scenarios. If Weaver wins, they are the 4 seed, case closed. If Westbrook wins, they're the 4 seed, case closed. If Pleasant Valley wins and Westbrook loses, Pleasant Valley is the 4 seed. And if they all lose, Artie, it goes to the dreaded coin toss. So, here's the predictions we have. You have Westbrook Christian playing a really good Ranburne team, so we took them out of the equation. You take Weaver, who's playing a, somewhat decent sometimes White Plains team, who we believe Weaver will win because Pleasant Valley has to play that nasty Swain Morris Bulldog team of Gaston, and I don't think they have even a shot of beating them.
Well, keep in mind, as you was talking about White Plains, they've only won 2 games, so that's kind of our thought process on that.
And so, the first 3 in this region are pretty well open shut. You got Glencoe at 1, Piedmont at 2, Walter Webburn at 3, and then we have Weaver locked in at that 4 spot to be able to go to Rainsville and play in the first round of the playoffs.
But as you say, if they lose, it's going to get ugly.
Well, it goes all to the dreaded coin toss, and the way the coin toss is with the AHSAA is 3 coaches flip a coin, and the odd man out gets promoted and gets to go to the playoffs.
What a way to go to the playoffs. Okay, looking ahead at 3A Region 7. Now, you want to talk about a mess. This is a mess.
Big mess.
You have a Pisgah team at 14. You have a New Hope team at 11. And a Sylvania team at 10. Okay, you say, well, that's pretty cut and dry. Oh, this is where it gets tricky. You got Pisgah taking on an Asheville team with 2 wins, so they could get to 16. You have New Hope taking on a Westminster team with 5 wins, which could also get to 16. Then you have Sylvania taking on a 6-win Eider team, so all of a sudden you got 3 teams at 16 in a huge mess. Well, if you go that far, you drop to the next level, which is overall wins, and in this case, Pisgah would be in the catbird seat because they would have 1 more win than the other 2, which would make them the 3 seed. Okay, then you go back to head-to-head. Sylvania would have beaten New Hope last week, so therefore they would take the 4th seed. That's just one scenario, though. We also have a scenario where Sylvania could be the 3 seed. Pisgah would have to lose. New Hope would have to lose. Same process with New Hope. They would have to win. The other 2 would have to lose. What it really boils down to, though, is Pisgah is more or less playing for that 3rd seed because if they beat Asheville, it doesn't matter what the other 2 do. They will be the 3rd seed. But, just looking at it, our predictions, things like that, that's a really good Westminster team. Wouldn't surprise me if they didn't beat New Hope. And if that's the case, then Pisgah and Sylvania would probably get in because we have Sylvania beating Eider, which would slide them in the 4th spot because That would put them at 16 also, but Pisgah would hold head-to-head, therefore they would be your 3 seed. So after all this, our predictions are, of course, Plainview's number 1, Geraldine's number 2. That's locked in. But at that third spot, we've got Pisgah beating Nashville and taking it outright. And then we have Sylvania sliding in at 4th.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we worked it out. It was a long – this one gave us the most trouble because there's so many crazy scenarios that could work out to the point to where you want to take your brain out and just scratch it for a minute because you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, also, I forgot to also mention, if Pisgah wins and the other 2 lose, then New Hope takes the spot because New Hope would still then be ahead of Sylvania because they have 11 at the moment and Sylvania only has 10. Looking ahead to 6A Region 6, it's actually got decided this morning by the AHSAA as they have decided that the win over the Louisiana team back in week 5 or week 6, somewhere in there, by Shades Valley will count for their non-region wins. Therefore, that puts them to 3, and it drops, Benson only had 2. So, therefore, they would go ahead of them, and Shades, having beaten Gardendale, would go to number 2 behind Clay Chalkville. So, that puts Clay Chalkville at number 1, Shades Valley at number 2, Gardendale at number 3, and Pinson bringing up the rear at number 4.
Well, everyone, we hope we've not sort of confused you too much on breaking down everything here. But switching gears, our team of the week for this week is the Gadsden Bulldogs. They beat Cleveland this past Friday night, 35-28. And Cleveland was the possible number 2 out of 2A Region 7, but after the win from Gadsden, they jumped to number 2, and Cleveland falls. And Artie, just talk about this Gadsden team and sort of their win over Cleveland and jumping up to that 2 spot in Region 7.
Well, they lost their top running back last year to graduation, so coming into this year, most of your experts had Cleveland as being a clean-cut number 2 to 5. Myself, I actually picked Gaston to be number 2 in this region and was kind of looked at funny in doing so. But, Swain Morris knows what he's doing, especially with that group, and he found a way to win somehow last week.
Yeah, this game come down to the wire, and I think Cleveland had the ball last and even had a chance to tie it up, maybe send it in overtime. But when you're playing at the Ridge and you're playing Swain Morris and company, it's really hard to overcome those odds and those fans at that stadium.
As you say, the atmosphere of the Ridge, it is what it is, and for whatever reason, Gaston's just not the same team on the road as they are at home.
Oh, definitely not. I've seen them play at home last year against Eider, and the first half Eider come out and really played them hard, and then the second half Gaston took over, and they just really manhandled the Eider team, and they couldn't come back from it.
Well, Nikita, I believe we have one shout-out this week, and would you like to do the honors and, shouting out to who it was?
Yeah, we got a new Twitter follower this week that put us at 19 followers. We're closing in on the big 2-0, so we want to give a big, great shout-out to Gadsden City Titans Athletics Department already for following us this week.
Well, as you say, we're closing on 2-0. We'd like to get to 5-0. That's just a little request out there. Some of y'all other schools, you need to help us out with that, if you would.
Yeah, keep us locked in and hang with us. We're trying to get this thing cranked up, and if we can get the right support, we can do big things with this program.
And we intend to really, really break down these playoffs. This is, to me, on just me personally, I love this time of year. I think the playoffs are one of the most interesting things that goes on all season. Some people get into the rivalry thing. That's just not me, but I look for the teams to be the championship teams. I'm already, sizing people up 2 or 3 weeks into the year throughout the state as to be, who will be your top 4 and top 2 and so on and so forth.
Yeah, like you say, we like to look down the road and see what's going to shape up toward the end of the year. We don't want to rush through football season because it goes by fast enough as it is, but we like to see and kind of get in our minds the projections that we foresee for being really good playoff matchups to give the coverage to you so you'll know what's going on.
And just, keep in mind that with this being said, we're going to, or we're intending to have a nice preview show for you, breaking down every single bracket and every single step of the way, and giving you our picks for the finals and the champions.
Yeah, we're going to take it step by step, game by game, and just give you as much insider depth as we can give you on these games, and we're just going to show you the brackets that we have, and hopefully it's good for your team, or if it's not, we're sorry, but sometimes that's just the way it works out in the playoffs.
Well, everyone, we are just 1 week away from the start of the high school football playoffs. Well, everybody, for Nikita and Artie, I'm Brock Bennett. Join us again next week. Like Nikita said, we will break everything down step by step, game by game, and do our best to get you prepared for the first round of the high school playoffs next week. So for us here at PSN Sports Network, I'm Brock Bennett, and we are signing off.